Okay, let's finish up today's lesson by talking a little bit about trust and forgiveness, because these two concepts really relate to one another, as you'll see. So forgiveness is different than trust. Trust must be earned, like we saw in principle number 2. Trust is something that the one spouse has got to earn from the other spouse, and so when we trust, we're being reactive. When I trust my wife, I'm reacting to her track record. I know that she's a trustworthy person. I'm not saying she's perfect, but she has been very trustworthy, and so I react to the person that she is. She's earned my trust. But forgiveness is a gift. Forgiveness is something that we're not reactive about, but when we forgive, we're being proactive. We're choosing to forgive. We're deciding to forgive. In the Bible, in Colossians chapter 3, Paul talks about this. He's talking to some Christians here, and he says, put on compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. And so this is a value in the Bible. Paul is saying this: God wants us to bear with one another. God wants us to forgive each other. And here's the reason. He tells us in the second part of the verse, he says, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. So he says, you must forgive. In other words, in the Bible, forgiveness is a command. So trust isn't a command. We're not supposed to just blindly trust, but we are supposed to forgive. That is a value of God. And that's a value in the Bible. And so we can forgive someone even when they don't deserve it. And this is so important for our marriages. You know, in your marriage, you should be very cautious about trust. You should work hard to earn trust. But when it comes to forgiveness, you should generously give it out to your spouse.
Let me offer up an extreme example of how this could play out, this idea of forgiving even when they don't deserve it. Let's say that one of you has had an affair. The greatest predictor of success of a couple moving past an affair and moving on in a healthy marriage, the predictor of that going well is the ability of the offended spouse, their ability to forgive. And the reason for that is the person needs to be able to forgive in order to start working on the trust issues. And so that's kind of what we want to finish with this idea today, that when you forgive your spouse, you're not saying everything's fine. Just like in the infidelity example, you're not saying in forgiving, you're not saying that's fine. You are releasing your bitterness so that you can focus on the issue at hand, which is restoring trust to your marriage. So again, going back to that example, forgiveness is such an important piece to get that out of the way so that you can focus on the issues of, you broke my trust, I'm going to forgive you for the offense, but I'm going to wait and watch to see how you earn my trust back in this particular area.
So why don't you finish up your time together by talking about these questions in red, and we'll see you in the next lesson.